is a question that begets another question from me, which is, will AI replace recruiters?
Today is Erin Wilson. Erin is a recruiting expert out in SF. He's got a lot of great things up his sleeve that he's cooking up in the world of recruiting and talent acquisition, one of those bleeding edge type of recruiting minds. Worked at companies like Yahoo.
I just walked out of one of the most popular tech brands in the entire world. They have 50 recruiters in their org. They're not using AI. The chief people officer was lamenting that he cannot get the 50-person recruiting team to adopt AI. And we're 2.5 years into it, Brandon.
I love the human element of recruiting. There's the art and the science of recruiting. Can we please just do a little bit more art?
People hire people. And I will keep saying it. You know, this is the shortest path to a great hire.
Hey, RecOps friends, are you still losing hours every week to interview scheduling chaos? What if you could eliminate the back and forth, cut scheduling time by 90%, and actually get those recruiter hours back on the hiring desk where they belong? That's exactly why teams are turning to Rooster, the native interview scheduling platform built inside Workday Recruiting that finally makes interview logistics fast, seamless, and predictable. With Rooster, you connect directly to your Workday system. No extra tools, no disconnected workflows, and instantly let candidates self-schedule with one-click booking links. It handles time zone and language differences automatically, sends branded confirmations and reminders via SMS, email, or WhatsApp, and keeps interviewers, coordinators, and candidates in sync without constant manual follow-ups. And it's not just about speed. Rooster helps you see the true cost of scheduling inefficiencies with its TAS metric, so ops teams can track and improve the parts of the process that slow you down the most. Whether your team hires locally, globally, or somewhere in between, Rooster cuts errors, saves 10 plus recruiter hours per week, and creates a candidate experience that reflects the quality of your brand. If you're ready to stop chasing calendars and start hiring with confidence, visit rooster.us and schedule a demo today. Your recruiters will thank you. Now, on with the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Today is Erin Wilson, a new homie from the internet. Erin and I connected in this past year, and I've been really looking forward to this one. Erin is a recruiting expert out in SF. He's got a lot of great things up his sleeve that he's cooking up in the world of recruiting and talent acquisition, one of those bleeding edge type of recruiting minds. Worked at companies like Yahoo. I'm excited to have you on the show today, man. What's up?
Hey, thanks for having me. You're making waves out there, man. I'm just trying to ride them.
Hey, there we go. I just got back from San Diego, and man, I didn't ride any waves, but soaking in the 55 degrees C, 60 degrees C was incredible.
I always tell people the difference between Northern California and Southern California, where I'm from, is the ocean. Because you have to wear a wetsuit to go in the water here. But when I grew up in SoCal, you could walk into the ocean 9 months out of the year in your trunks and go have fun.
I don't know, man. I've been on my cold plunge tip. I have absolutely been a tech bro longer than I've worked in tech, but yeah, man. Like wellness modalities, that way of life. It is what it is. It infiltrates the tech world, but you're a SoCal bro. What do you do for mind, body, spirit to stay on top of your game? Because recruiting doesn't sleep.
It's true. Reading. I think reading is a big place to start the day and a great place to continue your learning in a really quiet way. You know that our space can be noisy, dare I say, chaotic. So the idea of burying my head in a book for a few chapters and just being present with the words on the page, breathing while I'm reading, it's really the best way to start the day.
I dig that. I read tech dystopian and nonfiction about AI, so there's no escaping it for me. What are you reading?
Eventually, I grew up and stopped reading just business books on my end, because that's what when you say, do you read? I'd be like, yeah, I read The Hard Things About Hard Things. But these days, I get on a run. I got interested in Buddhism, so I read 3 Buddhism books in a row. Then my wife will suggest a great nonfiction book or fiction book that I should read. And I trust her, so I just read it. My brother sent me The Alchemist recently, which I know millions of people have read, but I had not. So I read that last week. So yeah, I'm really open to just the people who know me well. They make recommendations and I read them.
Love it. I love it. Where are you based? What are you working on? What's top of mind today?
I'm in San Francisco, man. I feel alive again. I came out of the shadows after founding back-to-back companies. And I was just downtown yesterday, and I got to tell you, B, this place that I live in is absolutely the future. There are more self-driving cars than none in some places in this city. It's a question of which self-driving vehicle is it now. There's 3 or 4, maybe 5 brands flowing through. I walked into one office and saw robots folding laundry and making lattes just yesterday. So I think that speaks to where I'm at. I'm just surrounded by innovation. And that's probably the most exciting piece of my career, but also sometimes the most challenging. Where does innovation start? Where is it fostered? And I don't think in recruiting, that's been an easy answer for some of us.
Innovation in recruiting starts at pain. When we think about digital transformation of the recruiting tech we use, it's because companies can't hire the right people fast enough. So think about things you and I have seen in our lifetime, moving from classifieds in the paper or Craigslist to more robust programmatic job boards, mobile optimized applicant tracking systems because you can't pinch and pull a legacy ATS on an iPhone 4, SMS texting because there are folks out there that don't have an email address or a digital profile or a LinkedIn profile. So now we're on this new wave and it's exciting. But yeah, where does innovation start in hiring? Pain. It's gotta. The problem, and I want your take, we have AI now and we have a handful of LLM shops that all of the B2B vendors are piping API calls to. But we have consumer tech building on AI at the same time as enterprise and B2B tech. And then recruiting tech, HR tech is like a few years behind regular B2B tech. And it's just sloppy because we're all building on this technology framework at the same time. And candidates at this point don't really have an AI forward operational lifestyle from a technology standpoint.
I would agree. And I double down on the origin story because all of the AI buzz that you can read about online, I just walked out of one of the most popular tech brands in the entire world. They have 50 recruiters in their org. They're not using AI. The chief people officer was lamenting that he cannot get the 50-person recruiting team to adopt AI. And we're 2.5 years into it, Brandon. It's really interesting that people are still solving the same problems that they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago when the ATS became modernized and sexy. And that was the new tool everybody bought. People are still talking about applicant tracking systems, top of funnel. The phraseology hasn't changed, and I'm not convinced that the solutions have gotten any better.
I'm a little disenfranchised. I've said this before, where you're right. We're 2.5, 3 years into the widespread adoption of consumer level LLMs, and we're not in the science fiction future that I think a lot of us thought we might be. Yes, you talk about self-driving cars. That's incredible. But maybe the adoption of this technology will be less of a moment and more of a process where our exposure to them grows with the speed of innovation so that it's not, hey, it's plopped down in a perfect state and now we're experiencing the future. It's just, oh yeah, now we slowly use ChatGPT instead of Google to ask questions. And then the next thing you know, we're destroying the environment.
Fair. I love that insight on the process. And it is a question that begets another question from me, which is, will AI replace recruiters? And what process is the meta process you're referring to mapping to today?
Let's get philosophical. Erin, you're a recruiter. I'm a recruiter. I love the Rex. I know you like to do the work too. Say, for example, I can fill 10 positions a quarter and you can fill 10 positions a quarter. And then you and I start using AI and I can fill 15 positions a quarter and you can fill 15 positions a quarter. So next quarter, we don't need the third person. Did AI replace that recruiter?
In that dream scenario, I would say it replaced the headcount. I'm not sure it replaced the recruiter. I would argue that you're not replicating a third one of us in that story by using AI. You're only amplifying the work of the first two. And traditionally, when you hire additional recruiters, it's to create more output. So did we replace the recruiter?
And your response raises the biggest concern I have with all of this. And it is the personification of AI, and specifically the gendered personification of AI. How many tools have you seen come to market with a female gendered name for an agent? Why are we doing this? This is like something that is so common in B2B SaaS right now, and it is frightening and it is so wrong. It is not how we need to be thinking about technology. Yes, we have things like Alexa and Siri that came into our world as personified technology, but this is a concern. This is the next conversation after we get through Workday lawsuit is going to be what Lattice tried to do earlier in the year, which is create AI onboarding as an employee. And they quickly put a lid on that. I don't know, man. I'm just concerned about how we think about technology. I'm a human. I love the human element of recruiting. We're talking as two bros on a podcast. Like there's the art and the science of recruiting. Can we please just do a little bit more art? Can we have a little bit more art? You have beautiful art behind you. You have beautiful photos of your children. Don't you want them to grow up in a world that is just like a little bit cooler than this dulled technology experience we call life?
Absolutely, man. And I'm so repetitive. I know people have heard me say people hire people, and I will keep saying it. You know, this is the shortest path to a great hire, people hiring people. And the personification, it resonates with me, I feel, having worked with so many recruiters over the last almost 2 decades. Some of us are really good at what we do, but also go through a bit of an identity crisis as you grow up in the industry. How are you valuing yourself? How are you perceived by the business? How do you get from one job to the next without just starting from scratch again? Because knowledge of recruiting is nil mostly, right? And so I can understand why there's a personification. It may give you the impression that recruiters can all of a sudden be that much more important, that much better, that much more valuable. But I really see that as false hope. Again, coming back to how are we actually collaborating with the AI? How are we utilizing the LLM in our workflow today? And not to be totally traditional, but what is that workflow even? Because I think you and I talked a bit about this offline. If I asked 100 of my friends, will AI replace me, who they call a recruiter, 0 will say yes. But if I ask them, will it replace that recruiter, and point to another one who has 8 years of experience, was hired by Meta out of the gate, has only worked for Meta and Square, 100 will say yes. And so I'm super interested in the diff. What's the learning curve? And I think that, to me, LLM is just another way to assess people's rate of learn or their learning curve. It's another tool. But how are we going to enable ourselves to do better, more value into the business?
And recruiter is such a broad term. It is not a regulated job title. Anybody can call themselves a chef, an artist, a recruiter. So many companies hire in different ways. When I meet folks that operate a recruiting function outside of tech in another sector of the S&P or public service, it's so fun to hear about like their workflow because it's not one size fits all. You mentioned the differences of what it might be like to recruit at Meta or Square. What do you think the difference is between big tech recruiter or startup recruiter? Or what are the things that you're seeing and talking to recruiters that are navigating this market right now?
It's in space. It's the difference between sourcing and recruiting, right? You can't recruit if you don't understand the business. You can't recruit if you don't know what you're building towards or the why behind it, right? You're left to source. I think that's where a lot of the market is. Real conversation for you. Recent client, chief people officer asked me, how do we get different profiles in the door? And I said, can you explain the profiles we're getting today? And he said, we're getting a lot of this kind of profile. Spares the time. And so my first answer is that's exactly what your director of engineering asked them to go find. So we could start there. But I said, the second thing is they're not recruiting. That's the difference. Because when you source, you're relying on meta words. You're relying on LinkedIn's recommendations. You're relying on a static outreach, a very two-dimensional approach. But when you're recruiting, when you understand the business, when you understand why you're building these teams in this moment in time, in the way that you're building them, you can recruit and you can have a completely different experience for yourself, for the company you're working with, the profiles you attract. And I think a lot of that's lost, not because recruiters aren't capable. They're very seldomly are they welcomed into the business. How many recruiters have actually gone into an engineering stand-up more than once? Why not every stand-up?
Yeah.
How many recruiters get a headcount plan 3 months before they have to execute on it, as opposed to 3 days after they were supposed to start?
We talked about that in the pre-show. No, it's so true. And I think that's the piece where we have these program managers, we have project managers. Like, what is the value of having a fly on the wall? And it's tremendous. And I think about the environments that I've worked in where I learned the most. And it was two things: being in person and being pulled into that meeting, or seeing my team that I was hiring for, hiring manager, cross-functional interviewer, seeing their stand up and just going and forcing myself into that corner of the office, knocking on a door of a hiring manager who had a very slow time to scorecard submit. These things that you learn early in your career through the soft skills, and you only develop the soft skills by going through those types of communication rituals. And then the second piece where I learned the most was just execution, stepping on the field, filling a high volume of roles, tight deadlines, tremendous accountability, moving 1,000,000 miles an hour in hypergrowth at companies back to back. And it's like, yep, you got to get the reps in and you've got to step on the field in order to get good and practiced at a craft. Those are two areas in my life where I think about I felt like I became a recruiter, and now looking back, learned the most. When did you learn the most?
It had to have been when I moved from the agency world internal for the first time, and maybe continuously since then, right? Because each company has brought a new set of challenges. But in the agency, they don't teach you about the inside. They teach you it's all bad. And then you get inside and actually it's quite fun. There's a lot to learn. There's a great feeling of rewarding. But I had the opportunity to work for one of the most impressive technology leaders in the world. Unfortunately, he passed away at a young age. But this was a once in a lifetime opportunity to work under a technology operator that was scaling from $100 million business to $1 billion exit. And that's how they recruited me, Brandon, to go back to origin stories, right? they had recruited me, they never once said, can you come fill jobs? Can you come do recruiting? They said, I'm building $1 billion business and I need a business partner. And the way that person individually drove organizational design, implementation, outcomes, measurement, I just could never say thank you enough. Getting the entire company to do a stand-up, including the CEO, right? It was a cultural shift. It wasn't an engineering thing. I saw how much effort that took. I saw how much work that took, how much communication. And I would argue that AI could never do what I saw that person do in every conference room, catching people in the hallway, starting brew days, right? Getting people out to brew beer. And so I have learned the most from world-class technology operators who do their job and want me to do mine. And we collaborate really well together. In particular, female operators I've had really good success working with. There tends to be almost no ego in the room, which I appreciate.
I think about a product leader. Actually, I just shout him out. Shout out to Matt Scher. Matt Scher, man, thank you so much, dude. When I was learning about tech, you were such a friend. You were so kind. You were so fun. You welcomed me into the product org, took me under your wing, allowed me to stand in stand-ups, explained things to me. This is my first tech recruiting job. And he was just a friendly person in the office that was like down to clown. And we drank the same coffee. And I actually stole his coffee for the first 2 months at the company, making pour overs because I didn't know it was his stash. Sorry, Matt. I owe you some Mexican Chiapas coffee beans. But I think about those times because, dude, I literally, before my first tech job, I knew nothing about tech. And when I heard stand-up, I was like, oh, these people are funny. It was not stand-up jokes. But I learned technology. And I think that's the cool part about recruiting, man. You can learn this stuff. You can be a good business partner, and great hiring managers see recruiters as extensions of their teams. And I don't know, man, if I'm a leader, I want to perpetuate a legacy. I want to motivate people. I want to influence them positively in their life. What's one more person in the crew? Come on over, executive assistant. Come on over, recruiting coordinator. Let's talk about CI/CD. Let's talk about market data for where we're going to get this talent. Let's talk about product development life cycles. I love this idea of the rotational program for recruiting. It's easy to fall into recruiting. It's easy to get into a tech company from the people side of the business if you get lucky, if you are prepared. I will say it, if you have a little bit of privilege, that's been my experience. I don't want to talk about this without saying that. But it's one of the areas of the business that has a low barrier to entry. And I think the best way we can evolve in our career is to have some sort of rotational program. So I'm excited about recruiters of the future. Hopefully they can learn the business quickly. Do you think they can do it remotely? Do you think it has to be those like side-by-side conversations or going out to lunch with an engineering team? Like, how do you see recruiters as a field being developed?
I just want to push us to, we need to be more multidimensional as a group. It's all too often that I talk to recruiters today and they're still stuck in whatever way they've been doing it. And nobody's asking them to stop doing that, but they're also not adding anything new to the equation. And I really have to question, in a world where you can get a hold of someone 8 ways, if you're only taking phone calls on your cell phone, really how dynamic is your desk? How much impact can you truly drive into a company? I think about recruiters, I want us to be trajectory makers in a company, right? What is the inflection point where you joined, Brandon, in your previous companies, and what happened after that? And I hope they all went like this, right? But again, I think that's impossible if you think your job is to serve resumes. Again, this is one of the funniest things. I get a lot of great feedback for how I work with people, but I try to give all the credit back to just the community. I've stolen everybody's ideas. I execute everybody else's ideas, and I stay away from all the AI, and it works. What do I mean by that? Today, I send video messages out when I do sourcing.
Love it.
Right? This is what I do. I learn about a job. I sit down in front of my computer. I open QuickTime. That's free. It comes on your computer. I hit record. And then I tell a story. 1 minute, 2 minutes. But that story is a one-of-a-kind story. You can't hear it anywhere else. And then I send that message to a small batch of people. The response rate is 37% at scale. Now, I'm willing to be not the best in the room, but I have enough data to know that's about 2.5 or 3 times better than average.
Hell yeah,
I
it is.
spend very little time doing it. The responses are what actually motivates me. It's not that I think I'm good at video pitches. It's that I'm actually trying to give people the information they want, that they need to decide, why would I even talk to Brandon today of all these things? And furthermore, I am trying to create a time savings, right? I feel like we've lost time. Maybe I'm older, I have 4 kids. There's no free time in this world. So I want you to feel that time's going to count. So important. So the responses we get, they're totally dynamic, right? You send a static, you get, yes, I'm interested. No, I'm not interested, right? I send a video, very three-dimensional. I get back, I'm interested. Here's why. Here's my timeline. By the way, do you have answers to this question? And here's my resume.
Great. I love it.
And I just think they just beget its symmetry. And that, I think, let me come back to your question. Let me try again. Let me iterate here. The whole market is contingent on asymmetric information. What the greatest recruiters do is they make it symmetric, simply put. So whether you use AI to do that or not, I don't care. The more we make that piece of the world symmetric, the more value we'll create, the more successful. The compatibility comes from that data. So that's what I would strive for.
I dig that. I love the use of technology to influence human behavior, to storytell. I remember the first time I did that, picked up the phone, hit record selfie, sent it to a candidate. And the moment I did that, I was like, why haven't I done this before? And I had done it in different ways. And once you have consent and opt-in, like just go out there and make someone's day. This is their job. This is their health insurance. This is their retirement. This is their fulfillment. This is their motivation. This is their story. Just go do something cool. Make somebody feel special. I think we've lost the art of making candidates feel special. They should feel special. Their offer should feel like a Porsche with a giant red bow on the top. Every single offer call, that's what I envision. And that's the way I want people to feel about the next role. Yeah, you're going to have folks in lateral moves, or you're going to have executive placements where it's like, hey, you did this. Do you want to do it again? Are you sure? Are you motivated? Do you have it in you? But I don't know, man. I'm not mostly fulfilled by those VP searches. It's like that first time people manager, that first time seller, that first time creative director, these roles where it is a step up and they're probably going to get 10 to 20% comp increase. They're going to have new scope in their remit and they're pumped. I think that's just the way to recruit right now. But we talk about asymmetric information. Right now, I think a lot of companies are just like, let's see who's on sale. We can get somebody great who's done this before for 50th percentile comp or lower. And with that comes a flattening of motivation. I think we get people that come in and there's just negative sentiment around the world of work right now. What are you seeing? Is SF alive? Are people psyched on work? I don't spend a lot of time online despite being in the creator sphere, but what do you see? Do you meet passionate people?
Passion's still there. The builders, the creators, the energy's still here. I do feel the market has become a bit more binary, whereas I would have said San Francisco was almost pure growth 10 years ago and innovation. A lot of the companies have been shell-shocked by the last 4 or 5 years. They're not acknowledging what the reality is. And as you just portrayed, a very defensive strategy. They think they're being offensive, selective, picky, whatever the word may be. They're waiting, and they're getting passed up right now by companies that are smaller, bigger, more money, less money, but they have a clear purpose. They have a clear mission. They know why they're hiring. They know what their culture is, and they're moving. They're moving. Small one-day interviews. Those are back. Companies are hiring people in one day because they know what they're looking for, and so does the candidate, and it's over. And now you're not bidding against 10 companies and having the candidate make an emotional decision about 10 offers when they've forgotten completely why they started the search in the first place. I come back to video for a second because I love it. I think authenticity is going to be the difference maker. You got the AI halo, but at the end of the day, people still seek that authenticity. And when we were building Team AI, this was so magical, man, because we built a proprietary video-based platform. But in order to build it, we bootstrapped $10 million in revenue in 2.5 years doing Black Ops recruiting for a variety of startups, some stealth, some not. And we used the platform for all of the work. One of the coolest things was every conversation you had was captured. Every conversation. Brandon, from the kickoff meeting to the prep call, to the feedback exchange, to the offer discussion, right? And I can't tell you how much more personal the experience was, how much more efficient it was. How many times have you had to call a candidate to close them? The close call. But what if you asked them after the final interview how they felt about it and their answer was so authentic, so real, that was the close call. And that part of that was the offer they would accept. And I want to say that I appreciate the Porsche with the red bow, but I mean, let's get philosophical for a second. We can't do that, Brandon. We can't give everybody a Porsche in this company. I do want to treat the SDR and the exec the same in the process, but the truth is they don't both get Porsches. Now, what they both can get is they can get someone who listens more than I talk. They can get somebody who understands the business so well that I know whether their career trajectory aligns with our business growth trajectory and if the compatibility is there. And when it comes time to make the offer, they can feel like I meant what I said I was going to do. I did it. And there's a small post on LinkedIn we'll check out later, but I know you haven't seen that. So you just hit it on the head. There's a guy, Jack, many years ago. And when it was time for offer, shortcut, I said, hey, I know this is important to you and Gloria. Why don't the both of you come down to the office? We'll get in a room and that's how we'll do your offer. I had never done that before in my entire career up to that day. But I knew to him and Gloria, that was the answer. That was the red bow. That was the Porsche. And nobody does that.
Dude,
they really don't.
This is a crazy callback. So literally, Matt Scher, the guy I shouted out earlier, I remember he told me once, he was like, dude, I never sat around the speakerphone and gave the offer together with a recruiter. It's like, why not? Let's throw a party. It's so fun. And here's the data. There's a used 2024 Porsche 718 around the corner. It's got 1,000 miles, 82K. That's a pretty good offer for somebody early career. There's a 2026 Porsche 911, 182. Okay, somebody's balling with a Carrera. There's a GT3 911, 275. These numbers are far less than some of the roles that we've been filling recs on, my man. So I love this idea of getting the hiring manager excited because this is how recruiting can have a strong start to the post-hire outcome. It's how do we support through onboarding, through the first 30, 60, 90, however many days you want to tie accountability to. It's so important for us to nurture the relationship because recruiters have a lot of data and a lot of trust with the employees. Simple test. Go ask your top software engineer to tell you about their recruiter. Then go ask your top software engineer to tell you about their HR business partner. Recruiters have more information, more value, more trust. We can work with the business partners, but for so long, recruiting has just been this little teeny tiny corner of the HR org chart, but it's undervalued because of that trust. So how do we get more recruiters in stand-ups with the engineering team? Get them out of HR. Put your recruiters as service providers bolted on to the org chart for the clients they serve. Why? We have more recruiters who have a ton of experience. The silver lining in this layoff experience we've had over the last 4 years, recruiters have more at-bats. All of the recruiters I know that have navigated 2-3 layoffs, they just got more at-bats with a variety of hiring managers, a variety of stories to tell, a variety of offers and roles to pitch. These recruiters right now who are these like senior IC 6 to 10 years of experience, they are primed to be internal consulting service providers. And I would just love to see a world where we have more recruiting teams just working directly with the clients they serve and get out of HR. There's far more liability in what the sales team is shipping in contracts and saying to clients for what the product they're selling is than the liability of the human element and human data that recruiters manage. And for so long, that has been the reason why recruiting sits in HR is because, oh, it's a liability. We're talking about people. Bullshit. No, there's far more liability for what that SDR and AE is saying to a client to get a 10, 20, 100, $1 million contract across the line. Go ask your legal team.
I couldn't agree more. And first of all, the recruiting is the Medici of the tech industry. Okay. All roads lead through recruiting. We have more information than any other department in the entire company at all times. If we're operating at full speed, we know when the competitors are building a new product. We know when the companies are up for sale. We know when 5 people are about to leave or 50. We know it all, man. People don't ask us very many questions, but I assure you, we know the answers. I want to push even further too. I'd say the recruiters have to step up though. Right? You want to be a business partner, you got to understand. And I'll come back to, I have been taken care of in my career. Privilege is a big reason, Brandon. Thank you for calling that out. But the other one is because I took a swing. Seriously. Because when they were talking to me about my offer, I asked them a question and I said, serious question. You want me to hire 100 engineers in the next 2 years. When you get acquired, which you have told me is your strategy, and compliments to them for having a strategy, right? It's so hard to get a clear strategy from an executive team. They said, look, this is an exit play. This is not an IPO play. Okay. We're going to get acquired by one of these 6 people. I said, great plan. I can execute a clear plan. My goal is to be the best number 2 on the planet. What's the clear plan? Let me go execute. But here's the deal. Every one of those 100 engineers is going to be valued at $750,000 to $5 million on the way out. If I bring you those, how valuable am I? I never had to give them an offer or a number. They made me an offer based on that question that I accepted within 5 minutes. And I just think that I give you that question because you could ask a lot of companies. It's even more ridiculous now. One buddy just made a $25 million offer to an engineer and got turned down for a $50 million offer. That's the world we live in today. I'm going to date myself, but back when Zynga was blowing up, okay, Farmville for all you grandpas out there like me, we got to a place where companies are making $300,000 bonuses tiered over 3 years. And that went away in 2 or 3 years, but that was real for a minute. And we're in that, but now it's all stock and speculative value. And so, I'm interested to see where the recruiting industry goes. I see some of the most successful people in our space getting right on the AI bandwagon, which of course I don't fault them for that. But I see that migrating a lot of talent from big tech into AI tech. And I really love the smaller players. Where are the smaller startups? Where are the small infrastructure companies with just a team of 3 recruiters that really change the life of 100 people or 200 people, as opposed to, can I just create a mill over here and make everyone wait in line?
It's interesting you mentioned this, Erin, because there's a million ways to skin the cat. And a lot of folks think they have great recruiting ideas. Recruiting is pretty messy when it comes to comping people out and creating a business model that works for everyone. We're seeing a few different things in the industry right now from the cost of recruiting. I see on one hand, amazing career recruiters, senior ICs, folks that source, do the work, go out on their own, hang their shingle, and within a year, 2 years, they've got $1 million top line revenue. That's awesome. They're ripping 25%, 30% premium bill rates because they're top 90th percentile for what they recruit for. That's not the reality for a lot of folks. That's not the reality for a lot of companies. I also hear from founders, oh, Brandon, I cannot do these 20% bill rates. I'm getting cleaned out. This is so expensive. What's a different solution? Enter fractional. Send somebody in, fill 2 roles a month, get them on the books, $15K a month. Recruiters happy, clients happy. On the other side, Uber for recruiting, bounties on placements, single-digit contingencies hidden behind bounty platforms that plummet. And what is the value that company is receiving? Maybe some folks
Can we
play
talk
that
about
game.
Paraform for a second? Or is that off on?
That's what I'm alluding to. It's this flattening of service providers, but what we've talked about today is this great service. And I know you've got an idea, so I'm teeing you up for your idea. So let's talk about your idea. How are you seeing the value of the intro?
Let's do it. Look, it's Paraform for a short minute. Not the first one to think of that idea, but they've spun it up and it's out in the world today. But I have a question. Who can tell me which jobs on that platform are billable? Now, I love what you said about the incentives in our space, V. Candidly, this is where I feel I'm uniquely suited to work on this problem because I've been in the space for 18 years. I have been successful. I have failed enough, though, to make sure I learn continuously. And I have operated every model in recruiting to the tone of about $14 million in the last 5 years. And guess what? They didn't all work, even though they made money. And I think this is a really important call out, right? Sometimes it made the client feel icky. Sometimes it made me feel super icky. And then eventually you can get to this sweet spot. But at the end of the day, you're still dependent or contingent on the employer. And that's the part that's really been messing with me, B, because I want to build something special. It doesn't matter if it's a program, a tool, or company, but I want to build something special that solves this problem in recruiting. And up until recently, I have been blocked by the idea that because I love collaboration so much that I'm reliant on the hiring manager. But the truth is, I took a step back and I decided to follow a mantra I saw online, which was just build something for yourself. Who am I, Brandon? I'm a recruiter, my guy. We already had this conversation. So let me build something for my recruiter friends. And what I want to say to you is the recruiting industry is a very generous industry.
Hell yeah. I would not be here if it were not for the generosity of the people that came before me. Hands down. Go off.
That's right. Now, all of us take advantage of that generosity that are senior and we're leveraged. And in our circles, picking up a few clients, that's just showing up for the week, right? Then we want to grow the business. But what if we all just work together? This is what I'm stuck on. What if we truly all work together? Not every single one of us, not overnight. So this is what I'm working on without too much detail, because then I pretend I know all the answers and I don't. But to be clear, it's not VC backed. There's no AI halo. It's pretty much an anti-trend. The word dumb's a little harsh, but simple, be better. But what if recruiters just work together? What if each recruiter was responsible for their own client? Whether that client was an internal hiring manager or an external client, it's none of my business. But what if we shared? And what if we worked together to solve our collective client problems? Because when I work with recruiters, I don't have the incentive problem. There's enough money in the market for us to share. There's enough good work to do because we know that not all jobs are created equal. And when you find a great client, they want to hire more fast than one person can do. So instead of us all competing to get 10 new clients, why can't we both get 5 and then collaborate extremely well on the back end to make sure everybody gets it? Now, it's not quite that simple. Of course, we can build a tool, but you have to change the incentive or the economic structure. So TBD on that. But imagine if we could take the body of work that the recruiter or the recruiting industry does and actually capitalize it or monetize it on a more incremental basis in a healthy way. Let's take a working example. You're Brandon. I'm guessing you're going to talk to. You're busy. You do a lot of things, plus you're recruiting and amazing things like podcasts. So let's say you talk to 5 or 10 people this week, right? Whereas maybe a fully cranked recruiter could talk to 8 per day or something. But the point is, you're going to talk to 5 or 10. Now, I'm going to make an assumption about you as my peer. You're going to talk to people that you've measured are going to be a decent use of your time. You're not the kind of guy who said, I only talk to this kind of person. You love in chance encounters. You love potential, but you're going to do something to qualify your time. Let's call that your client base, what you're backing into. And after you talk to those 10, 15 people, 80, 90, 95% of that moment in time, that authentic content, that unique connectivity tissue, it dissipates very quickly. And the only thing stopping it from going from your desk back into the market where it belongs, if we will, is this collaboration between recruiters. Because it turns out when I talk to a great recruiter and they can tell me about a client, we can fill that job. I don't need to meet the client. I don't need to go to the office. There's a by proxy there. So when I think about the future of recruiting, when I think about what I want to build, I'm really thinking peer to peer. I'm thinking I'm going to build it for my recruiting friends so we can use it, probably give it away for free as long as possible, indefinitely, because it's not about us making money. It's about actually making it work truly. And I mean that because we all get money from other places. Our clients are sending us retainers. We're doing our contingency placements. Again, it's a very generous industry, right? So if we could set the money aside for a second and focus on the collaboration, we end up winning this game big time. And it's hard to do that in a startup because you have investors and milestones. And recruiting's not P0, right? Product market fit is, and then ARR is, and then profitability or EBITDA is. At no point does recruiting become the actual P0. But for us, it is. It's our lifeblood. It's what we wake up to do. So I had a call this week, and let me hand it back for this. His name's Alon Mayas. He is one of the most impressive sales engineering people in the Bay Area with a deep security background. So if you're a company out there needing that, you should ping Brandon because he's got you, okay? But this guy Alon, I was telling my wife as I was getting on the call with him, I said, hey, I'm about to get on a very special phone call. Alon is somebody I placed in 2011.
Nice.
And I placed him at a startup called Mu Dynamics, which was acquired by Spirent. And it was a really big deal because the job we got him covered the visa that brought his family from Israel.
Love it.
And when I got on the call, the first thing he said was, hey, Erin, do you know what I was telling my 11-year-old son today before I got on the call? I was telling him that I was going to talk to a super special person responsible for your family being in America. That's what we do, man. That's what we do. So let's keep it going, man. Let's do more of that. Right? Fuck the AI. Let's do that.
Dude, that's so awesome. Thank you for sharing that story. I have chills hearing you describe that. I'm reflecting back on those placements myself. It's so important for us not to lose sight of it. And it doesn't matter if that person's making $30 an hour, K or 3 million. It's skills removed. It's the experience of what we get to do to impact people's lives. Hell yeah. I'm fired up. Wow. That's amazing. I'm so excited about what you're building because I love the DIY ethos. I love the punk rock ethos. I love the shared resource ethos. That's what makes you special, Erin. That's what makes this industry special. That's what is more lasting than whatever the next hot startup is that is going to hire a bunch of recruiters and that company's brand is going to do all the work for them. It's the day in, day out, rinse and repeat, physiological work of recruiting. Sleuth the internet, call somebody, connect, have empathy, give a shit, place somebody, get them a good offer, get extra budget from your stakeholder, tell finance why it matters. Tell a candidate why they can't get more comp. All of these hard things, that to me is recruiting.
I love it, man. Can we, one more market anecdote? I'm sure we're running out of time. Juicebox just raised 30 million.
Correct.
AI sourcing. I'm sure Juicebox would have brought me the person I spoke to yesterday without me even lifting a finger, which is awesome. The problem is when I got on the phone with the person, they gave me a 5-minute reason why they weren't interviewing until January and how they already had 10 interviews lined up. Today, I called the person back and explained to them why they should talk to my partner next week. And now they're scheduled for next Tuesday. I still can't figure out where AI is going to solve that problem, because the reason he took the call on Tuesday next week is because of the experience he had with me in the call yesterday.
Yep. It's the human element. This is the exact same stuff that I think of. It's great. Let's get awesome signal at the top of funnel. Let's get a more aligned top of funnel on the short list. Let's call 10 people instead of 25, and let's have those 10 people be the right fit. But I'm with you, man. There's so much serendipity. There's so much human element to recruiting. AI doesn't know empathy. It doesn't know that connection. It doesn't know that you know the guy that I know, or, hey, did you do this thing or that thing? Or, hey, this is random, but... And I think of all of those moments where I've connected with a candidate and I try to pay it forward, because when that happens to me, there's serendipity, there's something. There's a piece of that asymmetric information that I get to help connect with the candidate and close them. I'm like, how did this happen? I need to keep putting out this like to the world so that it comes my way, because that's the inexplicable. Every recruiter who is worth their salt will tell you that. Every recruiter who has done this knows the power of luck, timing, serendipity, and anybody who tells you otherwise is lying, or they just recruit at Meta. We're going to wrap up. We're going to have you back on the show. How can people stay in touch with you? How can they learn about the tool you're building? What do you want people to know?
I'm not really on social media except for LinkedIn, obviously, because we got to stay present here in the industry. So you can definitely find me on LinkedIn. It's ERIN, so don't mix it up. For anyone keeping an eye out, if you are a agency recruiter really focused in the tech recruiting market in San Francisco, New York, or Toronto today, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to show you what I'm working on. I'd love to let you try it out. I would love to learn more about your business.
Love that. Erin, thanks for coming on the show. It's been an absolute treat. I'm stoked for everything that you're doing. Thanks for sharing your heart and your mind with us today. And I'll see you in the DMs.
Thanks, B. Talk to you soon, man.